Yep. So they're going to be our stars for today. And Matt, thank you so much for facilitating this conversation. We're all looking forward to you.
Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us this massively oversubscribed event. I thought everyone would be outside enjoying themselves, but no. We are here to understand NFTs and climate change. Do they go together? Do they not? Before I start, I just want to get a sense of who's in the room. Who's like deep into crypto, works for a crypto project? 1, 2, ooh, very nice. Who is like sort of crypto curious? They're kind of like, oh, stuff about crypto, and I come and see what that's like. Okay, and then who's like, why am I here? It's really nice outside, I shouldn't be here. One person, that's always good.
And who's here because they care about climate?
Ooh. I'd say that's the biggest group. So, yes, thank you for being here today. So we're going to talk about Green NFTs. My name is Matt, I'm the Editorial Director of the NEAR Foundation. The NEAR Foundation is a level 1 blockchain, or layer 1 blockchain, like Ethereum, like Solana, but very different. Crypto often gets kind of lumped in together with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is crypto, crypto is Bitcoin, but it's far more nuanced and subtle than that. The NEAR Foundation is 240,000 times more energy efficient than Bitcoin. It's 240 times faster. We like to say that for all the energy that Bitcoin uses in 10 minutes, NEAR takes 10 years to go through the same amount of energy. So things are very different. So joining me to my right is the lovely Karina. Karina is a conscientious change maker. I'm going to read this out so I don't get this wrong. She built an eco project last year called Las Palmas Doradas, which is golden palms, is that right? And she decided to flip her 17 years of global marketing, digital and innovation experience from serving brands to serving the planet. She's now an MA at Central St. Martin's, where she's researching and combining community, Web3 tech, and the awe-inspiring power of the arts to support regenerative projects. Her building blocks are art activism, cathedral thinking, and indigenous wisdom. Karina, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So why don't we start with the elephant in the room? Many people feel NFTs are a massive strain and, quite frankly, a waste of energy. What do you think about that?
Ooh, well, it depends. Well, first and foremost, it depends what you're building your NFTs on, as we said. Ethereum may be quite energy consumptive, but platforms like NEAR are not, as you have just heard. So that's the first part of the elephant already out of the room. And the second thing that's a lot more important is you need to ask yourself, why do you want to make these NFTs? What is the purpose? Are they doing anything else? There is this kind of thinking that, oh, NFTs are these JPEGs, these pictures, these profile pictures, what's this all about? Yes, there's that, but there's also an opportunity to think in very innovative ways about what these digital assets can do in the real world. And the reason why we haven't also explored as much of it is because we're still thinking in older legacy terms. I come from advertising and marketing background, and a lot of the creators and the kind of marketers and strategists right now, they're still using older knowledge that we have used them for the past 10 years. So the new user journeys are being developed and tested as we speak. So I invite you to really think about what's the end result that I want to do with this. And one of the end results that I'm playing around with and other climate-focused NFT creators are surrounding the benefits for the climate and ecology. I mean, we can get into it later on.
We will. And for reference, we have some slides on the board, so some of our panelists couldn't make it today. But we were trying to bring a group of people building on NEAR who are building not only NFT projects, but projects more broadly that explore climate change using blockchain as a tool. One of those is PARAS. It's a NFT platform built by and for artists, but it's also doing some really clever things. Its first incubator, where it's looking to accelerate and amplify projects with a climate change focus. One of those is carbon credits and renewable energy, the very thorny issue of carbon credits. And if you don't know why carbon credits is a thorny issue, put your hand up at the end, we can talk about that. So they're looking to use blockchain as a verifiable way of recording carbon credits and verifying whether the carbon credit is actually true or not. And then, as you can see, there's some more things on here. But before I dive into that, and I might just use that as kind of a backdrop while we talk a bit more. Karina, your journey into crypto, I think, might be quite demonstrative for people who are maybe curious about this space, about why you got into it. So why don't you tell us about where you started and why you're sat here talking about your crypto NFT projects?
All right. I think there may be a next slide we touch on that. I think if I'm right, no, the one. Well,
that's Emergence, which is one of yours.
Yeah, that's the second one. This is it.
Aha,
so we can start here. Yeah,
yes.
we can start here. So, as I mentioned previously, my background, 17 years plus in traditional marketing, innovation, brand building roles around the world. I have this background, and for the past 5 years, most recently, I was a director of cultural insights and trends at a large spirits company. So my literal daily job was to be in the future and bring the future to the table to convince brand VPs to get on with the times, and do something about it. So as I was doing that, the two glaring things that I saw over and over again were climate and crypto as the biggest opportunities for innovation and change making, and also the real need to. So that's where I started, and that's what's been on my mind. And a year ago, or around a year ago, I was lucky enough to experience natural degradation firsthand. I saw fires in the jungle, I saw rising sea levels, jumping up 5 meters in a couple of years. I saw so much plastic in the biosphere, like a natural park reserve, that I was very extremely moved. I mean, to me, this was a very personal, sad experience, because here in the city, we don't see that. We look at statistics, we look at reports, we look at charts, we look at headlines, Twitter feeds, and that's what we think. We think we know what's going on with climate and nature. But when we see it ourselves, it really touches a different part of you as a human being. It really kind of kicks you at the heart, and you think, whoa. So I was there looking at all of this thinking, what am I doing with myself? Selling X, Y, Z, flying around the world, constantly talking and not really creating or doing it myself. So I thought, I'm gonna try and do something about this. What can I do? And the first thing I saw, I started creating art, because that was the only logical thing to do at the time. In the kind of lockdowns and the pandemic world, I started working with the natural elements that I saw, trying to reconnect with nature and trying to figure out what it is that I can do. And I started that in order to communicate the climate problem, because climate has a communication issue. People really don't know. People are, research shows, I researched this a lot, research shows that people overestimate the actions that don't move the needle and underestimate those that don't. And also, if I quiz many of you in the room, I bet you won't be giving me the same answers to the real challenging issues. So I thought, with this artwork, I'm going to communicate the necessity of doing something and combine factual information, i.e., I'm a trained researcher, so I actually looked at all the climate data and combine that into emotive and emotionally resonant works that can hopefully connect with the heart of the viewer and communicate the message. So to me, that's kind of the most important thing. Ecological awareness, consciousness, right? Let's raise that first and foremost, and then let's do something about it. So that's where the second project comes in, and I'll talk about it in a second.
I love it. And I think you touched upon something really interesting there, which was, the title of this talk is, Green NFTs, fact or fiction. And I think there's something, you touched upon the idea of climate has a communications problem. And I'd say it's probably crypto has a bit of a communications problem too, right? It's the idea that people think of crypto, they think of Bitcoin, they think of energy wastage, speculation, crime, all the terrible things. What was it for you that you saw in this technology that made you think, oh, actually, this could be a really powerful tool for something more positive?
What I like the most about technology in general, and I have experience because I fresh out of university a long time ago, I was entered the Web 2, and I was a social media specialist, and very excited about the promise of connecting with everybody and reaching everyone and the speed and access and so on. The similar ethos exists with Web3 right now. The scalability, endless reach, decentralization, the democratization of access is fantastic. So that I find very exciting. Secondly, I keep thinking that climate is an extremely complex issue. We all know this. Not one person or one group of people has the solution. We all need to work together. And because of that, I thought I need to use technology. Like, technology needs to be a friend and not a foe. And we need to use the positive aspects of technology, which is speed, scalability, borderlessness, access, and so on, to really help amplify the project. And that's my experience in marketing and social media and whatnot confirms that you can indeed touch millions of hearts of people. You can reach billions of people with the right tools. So that's why I went toward crypto.
Yeah, lovely. And I guess sort of crypto's version of social media would be NFTs, right? It'd be the mass appeal, the lovely artworks you see around the room. And I think for anyone who uses social media here, you'll have mixed feelings about its value and its use, just as people have mixed feelings about NFTs' value and its use. So I guess that question for you, Karina, is what does NFTs have in it, technologically, philosophically, that makes it primed for a kind of force for social good, unless a force for social bad? It's quite a think about. But.
Oh gosh. Well, first and foremost, I see NFTs as a tool. So first of all, it's a communication tool. Right? Like I mentioned earlier, the need for emotive communication that resonates. So you can look at, even on the screens, you can see all these bright images and beautiful work. You're getting a connection. So to the first and foremost is this awareness building piece, so to speak. The second aspect of it that's awesome is the utility. I look at NFTs as membership cards. Right? Having an NFT is you have you have this NFT, kind of like a member's card. It gives you certain access. It says something about you. It opens up specific doors. It opens up specific events. It opens up specific financial opportunities if necessary, depending on how you build it. But it gives you access to a community and a group of people and certain knowledge and information that may not be available in the open. That's what I find interesting about it. Another way that I'm looking at NFTs is I'm very keen to disrupt fundraising for Earth-related projects because I also, maybe controversially, I do think that the general charity market and traditional old school legacy fundraising and market is a little bit, industry overall is a bit shady. So NFTs are something that I see as invitation for the new generation to try, to build that bridge between fundraising and the new generation. Especially because we're going to be living through the largest wealth transfer in history. $30 trillion is going to be moving from boomers to millennials and Gen Zs. So the question for any of you here who deals with this audience, or you might be, what are their values? What are their tools? How are they communicating with each other? You've got to be strategizing and building around that. So that's also what I'm hoping to do with this project.
So transfer $30 trillion from up here to down here, that's the ambition.
Well, actually, yeah, there's a need for that. Did you know that only 2% of all philanthropic donations go to climate mitigation? That's $8 billion a year was given in 2020 to climate out of almost $500 billion. So clearly there's a greater opportunity to move a little bit of cash toward, reforestation and cleaning the waters and so on.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And if you would like to explore the near ecosystem, there are dozens of projects doing similar kind of work. Open Forest Protocol is using NFTs and satellite tracking to verifiably trace reforestation all across the world. Very exciting project. Raise is a NFT platform that's building urban farms, induced use spaces in New York, and using NFTs as an incentive layer. Which leads us, I want to go back to something you said a bit earlier, Karina, about the idea of value. All right? We live in a society where value is kind of derived or backed against pounds, dollars, and other things like that. But crypto is kind of messing with that, and it's making people upset. Some people see it as an opportunity. Some people see NFTs as an extension of how we're rethinking value. Where do you think, or what do you think crypto is doing to value in terms of what can be valued, how do we measure value, how do we ascribe value, especially when we think about climate change, because I think historically, climate change, to protect something, you need to pay for it. You need to pay for it so that someone doesn't chop it down or dig it up or ruin it in some kind of shape or form. But crypto is kind of exploring ways of creating different types of value to leave things as they are. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, Karina, about value creation and things like that.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. Two things. One is people, so the power of the people, the power of the individuals and multidisciplinary thinking. So this is where I'm thinking that communities that are built on solid values and solid foundations, organically, high quality people are a very powerful driving force. So there's a value in that, having, you know, even 1,000 like-minded individuals can make a really big difference, and that's why to me that's important as a connecting thread. Because I also, in some of the research, I have seen that there's a lot of people who want to do good. There's a lot of people who want to volunteer their time, who want to learn how to do the right thing. They want to connect with other like-minded individuals. You know, I've done research on this, but they just don't know how to find these groups. Where do I go? I can volunteer on Saturday. I want to clean this or do that. What do I do? People just don't know. So that's an important opportunity in value creation. The same NFT groups or crypto communities can gather these people together, and that's what I'm working on developing with my project, the second project we're going to talk about. So that's one. And two, another piece of related to value is right now in the climate work, the system and the framework that we have that works, well, sort of works, is carbon credits. Because this is the financial mechanic that the world of industry understands and has to play around with. So we're going to be working with that and taking the legacy systems and the analog, complicated, complex analog systems into Web3 through these new tools that are transparent, speedy, global, etc. So yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, that's
a lovely segue.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that, so combining these two, it brings me to Emergence, which is the community project that's I created out of Las Palmas Doradas, which is an artistic expression. Here we are gathering multidisciplinary groups, so creators, artists. I'm at Central St. Martin's and University of Arts London. Right now we're working on a deep partnership to get 18,000 students and staff involved, especially because climate is on the agenda for the university moving forward. So, and it's also about getting academia involved, and technologists, and entrepreneurs, and visionaries, and a lot of different people who share common ecological goals together, getting them engaged and involved, and unlocking value for the community by leveraging the carbon credit system that we have right now. I'm hoping that there is going to be similar systems for clean water and clean air, and it is in the development as well. I'm looking at partners, and we'll be knocking on Mir's door when we're ready. But right now, this is how we're working with it. So the community can be fiscally rewarded for the good work that we do together, or that the projects that we invest in together, or that the partners that we find and bring together. And we are working with Open Forest Protocol.
Awesome. And I think something that you touched upon there, it was creating incentive to do good, right? And I think altruism is something that kind of comes hand in hand with, you know, the sometimes painful ways we need to conserve energy and not use as much and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of that kind of, when times get hard, like, you know, if anyone opened the newspaper this morning, times are very hard. Whereas crypto is kind of looking at a way of actually incentivizing and almost generating a living out of the conservation. Is that something that you feel is kind of foundational to crypto's kind of value here?
Yeah, absolutely. In this case, yes. You know, what I like about Web3 technologies is that we have an opportunity to build a better future. I mean, what I mentioned to Matt earlier is that we are at this pivotal point where we can create a better tomorrow because this technology exists right now. We're trying to put these Lego kind of blocks together, and we need as many diverse voices as possible. So more women are getting involved, more minorities are getting involved, all age groups are getting involved. I'd say I'm very lucky that I am, considered older in the crypto world, because a lot of people are very, very young, and bringing different kind of experience to build this better tomorrow and use the building blocks to incentivize the next generation, because they're quite invested in a better tomorrow. They're going to spend a lot of time in the future, and I hope it's a good one for them, rather than more and more challenging. And it's going to be more expensive. If we don't do anything about climate, we're going to lose 10% of global GDP very quickly. So things are only going to get more challenging if we don't do it.
So the conclusion there is crypto can help offset some of that pain, but we need a lot more diverse voices in this space. And I think something that at the foundation we talk a lot about the comparisons between Web 2 and Web 3 is that what Web 2 did is it had whoever got there first tended to get first mover advantage, and the systems and the things that they built tended to reflect the worlds that they lived in. Whereas Web 3 is still so early in its development, there is an opportunity for diverse communities, ethnicities, genders to shape and be part of this space. And I'd like to invite anybody here who's interested in learning more about that, how to take part in things like what Karina's doing, how to take part in the foundation, come and grab me or grab Karina, and we can talk about it a bit more. I'm aware of the time, and I'm wondering if we open it up to the floor so people can ask questions. Would that be... there's a question already there. Lady in the coral, lovely colour. Does she need a microphone? Does anyone want to pass, or are you just going to shout it out?
I can shout it out.
All right.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you for talking about communities. That's actually the first time anyone has talked about communities in relation to the NFTs. I got two questions for you. First, when you're saying that we need to think about mechanisms that would facilitate the transfer of capitals from boomers to millennials and Gen Zs, what kind of education are we thinking about providing the boomers? Because I also work with communities and NFTs, and there is a lot of pushback from this older generation that we have. Many people have a very valid argument why we need yet another thing elongating the funnel, which is NFT and crypto for now, while we can use the old tried and tested tools to work. My second question would be about your Las Palmas Doradas. What kind of extra bonus do these artworks, these NFTs bring to the potential buyer, to the potential collector, in terms of working with the climate change issue? Thank you.
I hope I remember all of it very well. May I need to ask you again?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So the first question about the boomers, I did not mean that we need to educate the boomers to teach them how to do this. I meant that they can transfer the wealth however they would do, usually through generational inheritance journeys, whatever they are. I meant to say that in order to get access to some of that, we need to design for the needs of these millennials and Gen Zs and their values. And we do know that they care about the environment, they care about justice, they care about equality, they care about a number of things more so than other generations. So they will find the way. So I didn't really think we need to educate the boomers that don't really want that. Those who care and want to please, everybody's welcome, and I'm sure their opinions would actually be really useful for UX designers and whatnot. But if they don't want to do it, let us focus on the generations that will be making a difference for decades to come. And the second question was about the benefits, right? So right now, the benefits, so I'm working with Mexico Tourism Board, so the representatives here, who are very much concerned with preservation and conservation. And what I'm working on is designing a project to give back to the geographic area where the project was born in Quintana Roo, the Sankan Biosphere Reserve, that's what it's called. They need a little bit of work on planting the mangroves, which actually absorb the most carbon out of all the other plant species, FYI. So we are going to be devising the mechanics either related to tourism, or it may be simply being participant of this community in doing this good. Especially if you think about, it's being 10 kilometers away from Tulum, where everybody's going to for revelry and party time, and there's a lot of drama and ecology around it. So it's more about building a community that participates and then finding benefits, hopefully geographically related benefits later on.
This man here.
Thanks a lot. I came 10 minutes late, so you may have covered that. You mentioned the community work in relation to carbon credits. Maybe you can expand on that a little further. Is it about mangroves you just mentioned, or carbon?
Yes, so the way it works is existing lands, existing plants, so to speak, existing plants can be logged onto the blockchain to unlock carbon credit financing. So if anybody knows has land or forests, please talk to me. They can be logged, and so that value can be shared in the community. And then the other aspect that can be done is the community, the volunteers, the bodies can do action, i.e. plant the mangroves, plant the new forests, plant whatever is necessary. That can then be logged and again unlock carbon credit financing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it the challenge on your side, the securing the financing as well, or is that not the challenge of setting up a new project, or what are the challenges you see?
Well, this OFB.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I work for the foundation, the foundation. Financing in crypto is leaps ahead of where Web2 is, right? So the foundation itself has an $800 million war chest to fund projects like this, right? So the money's there, and then A16Z, the big VC fund, just raised a $6 billion VC fund just for crypto, right? So financing in crypto is here, it's available. We have a challenge with communicating that and communicating what it can be used for. We have a huge grants team that works with projects like with PARAS, like with Karina, like with others, to help them finance these projects and get them off the ground. Part of the issue, to your point about carbon credits and conservation, is liquidity, right? If a community preserves something, how can they access the liquidity that's attached to the value of that carbon credit, right? And that's something that blockchain is trying to solve, because if you leave the forest as is, and it has an ascribed value, how do you access that value without cutting it down, right? That's the current problem, right? If the community says, we won't take this out of the ground, we won't chop it down, how do I get value, or how do I generate revenue or liquidity? We can't do that. Whereas in crypto, the idea is that the NFT or associated asset can be liquid and can be traded and used as a revenue generating opportunity, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. Do you work then with the likes of Pantera or Gold to get these projects verified?
So that's a great question. So we work with South Pole. So the foundation works with South Pole for carbon offsetting. So we actively contribute to that. Open Forest Protocol works directly with verification projects, satellite imagery projects that can verify the level of reforestation or deforestation. And I think, Karina, you work with a different project too.
I want to say that OFP is creating their own certification, so that's going to be basically a new thing, because the legacy systems are slow, expensive, time-consuming, etc. So the innovation in Web3 space right now is around creating marketplaces and new certification standards that are built on the blockchain. So it's kind of coming up.
Answer question?
Yeah.
Sort of. Okay.
It's just the demand.
Yeah.
Requires.
Of course.
The legislative, big old-fashioned.
It's a big puzzle, yeah, and it's hard to solve. Gentleman with his hand up there.
Let me just say I'm absolutely over the moon on what you're doing. I'll tell you why. I'll give him a round of applause, honestly, it really is. I've just been in Parliament earlier on and yesterday. I run Metaverse Week. I have different DAOs, different individuals that are contributing within Web3 space. It is the fastest growing sector. We need a bigger room than this to put the message out, period. Yeah, that's a period thing. So I think the work that you're doing also is leading to recognition If you want to come to Parliament, I'll get in touch with you directly. I'll keep you to Parliament. Simple as that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's
Thank you very much. Yeah, and something you touched on, DAOs, is a whole other subject that we could talk all day about. DAOs with climate change issues are really, really integrally linked, because what DAOs do is they give people voting rights and power to decide on how funds get spent, what projects are for, what they invest in, what they don't invest in. NEAR has the largest DAO ecosystem in the world because we built super simple DAOs that you can set up as quickly as an email address. You want to build a DAO, you want to give people voting rights, you want to set up treasuries, you want to set up legal entities. We have legal experts in the foundation who help people do. So that I'm now selling NEAR. But to your point, DAOs and NFTs and green stuff are very important. Thank you for your question. Any more questions? There's a scratch on the face there, that's not a question. That's Lady
There's
McCorrell.
one. Sorry. How exactly is NEAR more ecological than Ethereum?
Great question. Two things. One is carbon offsetting. It's the best solution that we have to offset carbon. So the foundation has to submit all its financial reports, all travel documents, all equipment manufactured, bought, anything that we contribute to the economy we have to report on, and it has to be measured and verified by South Pole. So I think last year we generated 174 tons of CO2, which we offset 3 times over than we did. Ethereum Foundation does not do that. And the second way NEAR does it is through the technology that it's built on, right? So for anyone who follows Ethereum and consensus mechanisms and consensus protocols, Ethereum at the moment is built on a consensus mechanism called proof of work, which is the same as Bitcoin. It is incredibly energy intensive. It is massively wasteful. NEAR does not work on that platform. It works on something called proof of stake. So it means that every piece of energy used is actually used to directly secure the network rather than a competition to see who gets the right to secure the network. So Ethereum is moving to proof of stake, and we're big fans of Ethereum. We have lots of friends in Ethereum. But the energy efficiency of the network of Ethereum compared to NEAR is no contest. We are, as I said, 240,000 times more energy efficient than Bitcoin. I'd say we're several thousand times more efficient than Ethereum, and will be for the next 5 years. Yeah.
What about safety and protection?
Safety and protection.
Of transactions.
So the security protocol. Yeah. So we have 100 validators that currently secure the network, which is fewer than Ethereum. So the argument is that we're less decentralized than Ethereum. The protocol roadmap this year is to increase that to 500 by splitting up the duties of securing the network to smaller and smaller chunks, because we use, and forgive me for getting into the weeds with this, the sharded blockchain, where we can separate the sort of logbook of all transactions into multiple chunks and give people the right to verify those and a living doing it. So we're on the road to becoming more decentralized, not as decentralized as Ethereum, but for us, the scalability and usability is more important at this stage. So that, I think, is the question. Gentlemen over there.
On the emergence, are those NFTs, do they contain artwork as well, or are they just a kind of investment asset for investing in these regeneration projects?
Oh yeah, no, the idea is high quality artwork, but also, yeah, that was the first port of call. That's kind of the step one, right? Because, you know, I think about how do we change human behavior, and we change it through emotions. 90% of our actions are guided by emotions, and art, by its very design, is a subjective communication that reaches emotion. So I'm making facts and climate data into it and collaborating with artists. I am at Central St. Martin's after all, collaborating with artists to create innovate the art as well. So it's not only is it a beautiful artwork that you can play on your screen, it's also a membership of the community and doing good at the same time. 3 in 1.
Yeah, and I think that's because one of the sort of tragedies of being a human is that doing good for the climate is not kind of cool, it's not something you boast about. And I think that kind of, using the artwork in that way is good.
It's also easy because you know what, old dog, new tricks. Like, it's so hard to change human behavior. Like, research shows that there's a big gap, there's a say-do gap, as they say. So you say, oh, I care about it, I do it, and actually you don't really do it. So we'll do it. Just join in and be part of it.
That's a great point you made about the idea, and I'll come to you in one second. That at the moment, fighting climate change requires you doing something difficult, or spending money to offset, or to not use something, or to not buy something. And what blockchain is trying to do, to Karina's point, is to take the existing emotive connection with thinking and doing, and giving it a value, right, that you can earn and own, right? So the idea that with things like Open Forest Protocol is you can buy an NFT that represents a parcel of forest, right? And the idea is the forest captures a certain number of carbon every year. That carbon then gets ascribed a value. The more mature the forest becomes, the more carbon it sucks in, therefore the more valuable the NFT becomes, right? So the idea that you directly tie financial incentive with fighting climate change hasn't really been done before, or has, but hasn't got very far.
And another thing you can also do with this, that's also in the works, that's in the roadmap, is to use NFTs as fundraising mechanisms to gather a kind of a war chest, a little pile of money to then buy land to conserve. That's already happening with some projects called Ethereum, terrible. But there are, we're thinking of other ways of doing it. You can buy this land and the community owns it, and you can do whatever you want with it to preserve, keep it, plant, build, etc. That's another, that's already happening as well in a small scale. So we'll see how it works out.
Gentleman here.
Right, near foundation, you've seen it everywhere. And the big thing that's got me is what's the level of consultation, possible mentorship that the near foundation provides if you have an idea. So you've got this great idea, and you go, right, this has got the possibility to be an NFT, get it out, and then you're led through it. I've seen it, it's almost too good to be true. You can explain it now.
Oh, of course, yeah. So one of the key reasons the foundation exists is to do that, right? Is to help people who have an idea, and you don't have to be a developer, you don't have to know Web3 coding languages, you don't have had to have built a company before. Actually, the majority of people who start businesses on Near haven't done that before. We have huge communities in Asia, Vietnam, China, the Philippines, India, who see the potential of this stuff and they go, where do I start, right? So they come to the foundation has a grants team, lawyers, access to separate VC funding, and basically you kind of go through a bit of a mini accelerator. NEAR doesn't take any equity from your business at all, it funds it through grant funding. So the idea is that you can go from zero to startup by just coming in.
And it also would say it's an unguaranteed.
Of course, yeah. So what the foundation tries to do with every project is, if it's a no now, it's here's the 3 or 4 things you need to do, and come back to us, speak to us again. And for the foundation, we're kind of, even though we have our own blockchain, we're actually agnostic in terms of where you build, right? Because we believe it shouldn't matter what blockchain you build on. The idea is that assets should flow freely between all of them, right? So we can build on Ethereum, and you can run your back end on Near, which is faster, cheaper, more carbon neutral, and still have a presence on Ethereum, still use Ethereum's community. We don't really care. Like, for us, the future really is not just us. Our job is to basically work ourselves out of the job, right? Give away all this money. You guys have all built these amazing projects, and then we can go, job done, no need for the foundation anymore, right? Which is very different from when you think about companies today, right? The companies today is to maintain advantage and control and power over the communities that it's built. And the foundation's role is to really give it away, right? And to help people who've got an idea, don't know where to start, may not know a developer, may not see crypto as for them, and just trying to help you work out whether
And you're based in London, it's easy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here, and the CEO's here, and lots of people based here in London. The headquarters in Switzerland, where most foundations tend to live, but we're a worldwide company, but we're all here in London and all over the place, so, come and grab me afterwards and we can have a chat. Karina, you want to say something before I have?
No, let's go to the question.
This man here.
Which NFT platforms
Yeah, Minbase. Yeah, Minbase, PARAS. There's lots and lots of much smaller ones at the moment that are just kind of getting going. I'd say there are 2 ones to think about. Minbase is slightly different, which is what Karina's used. Minbase is more a kind of like a Shopify, for NFTs. So they'll help you build your own gallery, help you build your own store. They've provided those mechanics, whereas someone like PARAS is, if you're a creator and you have created art that you want to sell, that will be a bit more like OpenSea, which is what most people know about. Yeah. Any more? This lady here. What sort of, so the question is, what sort of boilerplates and SDKs? When you say boilerplates, what do you mean? Yeah, so we have lots of sandboxes where you can come and play. You can, if you know JavaScript, Rust, or WebAssembly, you can build and deploy on Near, which gives you access to Ethereum, Polkadot, Terra, loads of places, right? And so we have lots and lots of little places where you can experiment, learn. We have developer office hours where you can ask any question you want about how this works. We are building a much bigger education platform. We already have certified developer platforms to help you get started. And then you go through those, you come at the bottom, there's a massive jobs pool waiting for you. So if you want to change your careers, you know, politics is not doing it for you, sir. You want to become a Near developer, he's not listening, then you can, right? And there's a job waiting for you at the end. Karina, you want to say something?
No, I mean, I'm looking at the time. I just want to say, if you want to follow Emergence or myself,
yes.
look Emergence XYZ on socials, and I'm on LinkedIn, Karina Abramova, and on Twitter, the Karina_A. I just want to say, if you want to stay in touch, there's lots of cool things coming up in the future, including a Wales planting project in autumn and an art show at the end of the month.
Amazing. And yeah, Near Foundation, I'm here, near.org. You'll find the website's very easy. You email hello@Near Foundation and someone will respond to you. And I'll hopefully see you on this side of the fence talking about your projects for you lovely people. I want to thank Karina for joining us today. I want to thank all of you lot for sitting in this very hot room.